Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about how to add attribution to an image. There's this great infographic out here that gives you some basics on how to add how do you attribute Creative Commons license photos. Now, not all photos you use will be Creative Commons license, but this will give you general principles. And what they recommend is that you should ideally list the author, the title of the work, the license, and any copyright notices. More specifically, they see you listing the title, then the author, and then the license. And then the question is, well, where do you put it? And so they point out two ways. The best way is to have it close to the image, preferably under the photo, but you can also put it at the bottom of the page. And so what I'm going to do is I've gone to Creative Commons search, and I'm searching Google Images for Sawtooth Mountains. And I find an image I want to use. I'm going to visit the page. And you sometimes have to hunt around to find some of this information. I get the author. I don't really see a clear title. I see a description here. And if I scroll down here, I can find that it is a attribution license. So if I click on that, I can see that that's just the CC BY. And so now I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to look at some of the different resolutions, because for this example that looks about right. So I'm going to save this to my desktop. I'm going to show you how, or at least one way that you could follow those best principles. So I'm going to insert the image into So some people actually even just add attribution to alternative text. Once again, I think the big idea is you just need to always attribute stuff that's not yours to whoever owns it, whoever created it. And if you do that in alt text, that's one way, but the preferred way is to do it close to the image. So now let's go back to this and remind ourselves, right? So wants to know the title of the work. And so, as we said, there wasn't really a clear title here, but we'll do, why don't we use that? And then, let's go back. So then it wanted to know the author, and then the license. So we know the author. Let's just copy this and see how that works. So we actually want to have the name and the link, so we'll type in here. So in this case, I'm just gonna link to that. And often for artists out there, more than anything, they want you to link to their page so other people can discover their work. And then that's a CCBY 2.0. So this works, but the nature of this is that it still stands out. So one of the things that I try to do when I'm focusing on this is I will try to make it as small as possible. Now, not to the point where I want to hide it or somehow have people not see the work, but what I'm going to do here to show you, so I'm going to create a div, and I'm doing this in a split view. And because you often will have more than one on page, I'm just going to create a class called image attribute. And then I'm going to copy that name. When I'm being real lazy and sometimes I don't remember if I'm adding inline CSS, I'll just do that up there, right? So now I'm just putting this in the head of the page rather than an external style sheet, just to illustrate this. And this is where then maybe I'll make it 9 pixels. I'll do color gray, and let's just see what that looks like. Right? So that's an example where you can still see the attribution, Let's actually save this and preview it and get a better feel for this. Now obviously the color, the size, all this would depend on what your color scheme, what the page is looking like. But you can see that this gives me the attribution. They can click to it, the user can see it, but it's not overpowering. Now in this case, if this was actually the banner of my website, something big and bold, I might actually in that case put it at the bottom. But if this is one of many images on my page, then this would be something that I would follow an approach like this. And you could play with it. You might find that, you know, maybe you want to see what 10 pixels looks like. You could obviously play with the font family. You could do lots of different things to help it really stand out. Once again, you don't want to hide it, but you don't want the attribution to overpower the whole page. I've also seen people take a different approach where they might even take an image and try to add a certain type of background to it. So let me show you what I'm. So I'm going to call this gray box. I'm so used to the period that I went ahead and added it. I'm going to come up here. So I'm going to add 10 pixels. The top, 10 pixels left. I'm going to add 20 pixels at the bottom. Okay, so that's a little dark, but right now you can hopefully start to see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go back up to this and go with a real light color. And so you can see basically the idea is, and for this example, because this is 640, I'm going to, and we had left, right, 50, 60. I'm just going to make the width just so you can see the example here. So this is good enough. But the idea is what people will try to do is even visually put it in a box that will kind of really show that, okay, this is attributions clearly related to this image, and then you can imagine doing the same thing later on down the page with another image. In this case, there's a lot of white space here, so I would play with cleaning this up. And in this case, there is a bit of this padding down here, and so I could probably even get away with keeping that at 10. And so once again, you want to just experiment with what's the right size for this. And so I could go back to 9 pixels. So just like that. I'd want to fix the link to make sure that you could actually see that, because right there the author's tough to see. So you'd want to obviously play with that. But hopefully this gives you a couple of ways of how you might use CSS, follow best practices on how to add attribution for Creative Commons images. Thanks.